you for having me this morning, or I guess it just clicked afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. My name is Jason Dablow, Principal Engineer, Cloud Advisor here with Trend Micro, which means I get to go and talk with some of the largest, most strategic customers that we have in terms of what they're doing for, say, either a cloud migration or either going through, say, something like a DevOps transformation and trying to implement more agile workflows as they're, trying to, accelerate the value that they're delivering to their customers. Today, I'm going to use a specific customer that I worked on last year and really talk about how they simplified and automated their workload security, specifically on AWS. The QR code there is just to my LinkedIn. I'm always sharing security information from our threat research teams, things like that as well. Also sharing my insights with, the hundreds of customers that I talk to every year, and kind of tying that in. It's always a learning experience that we can all do together within the LinkedIn community. I have a couple QR codes here as well. So if you don't have a QR reader, I think you could just open up your phone camera app and that'll work as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Systems Manager, which is an orchestration tool that's provided by AWS. It has some of these really key features in terms of really helping automate your operations, your building of infrastructure, your deployment of security, your maintaining of your compliance, and really giving you that visibility across all your workloads and being able to actually interact with them as well through a very light and simple agent. So this gives you kind of that, really shorten the time to detect problems. It allows you really to use this orchestration, as I mentioned, to help accelerate the value that you're delivering to your customers through the maintaining of your infrastructure that you have within AWS, as well as a hybrid environment as well. I think that's one of a key piece here that's often lost, is that you can install this agent on things like, something like an Azure VM or on-premise data center, which I'm going to talk about my customer's use case specifically as well, to actually use Systems Manager to control those resources, even that are outside AWS as well, from a unifying dashboard that ultimately allows that visibility and control over, again, that automation, security, compliance, etc. So it's a great tool in terms of combining multiple assets. So on the back end, it uses things like CloudFormation template. It uses things like Control Tower. A number of services are baked into Systems Manager specifically, and it allows you to take advantage of Systems Manager, again, to really help focus in on that visibility that you have within your environment. So there's specific tooling within Systems Manager that would allow you to say, look at your inventory as it exists within your entire environment, or maybe use something like Distributor, which I'll touch on further, to deploy a piece of software throughout your entire EC2 fleet. There's also things where you can run a specific command, just like you were sitting at a command line at a Linux shell. So really, really great tools in terms of being able to really control that visibility and making sure that you're maintaining the security and compliance within your environment. So as I mentioned, this was a customer that I worked on last year in terms of an enterprise in the Fintech space. They started with a new client application that was around 300 EC2 instances backed by a number of different resources like database services, things like that. And what they started with was deploying the SSM agent on all of this EC2 that was out there. So all of these 300 EC2 instances got the Systems Manager agent, which then allowed them to take advantage of things like I mentioned, like the run command. Like you're sitting at the console, you can essentially run a command against a Linux prompt from the AWS console or CLI. You also have Distributor, which they use to roll out the Trend Micro Cloud One workload security within their environment, just with 3 clicks of a button as well. They also continuously maintain their security with Distributor by making sure that any new EC2 instances that are spun up automatically get that workload security agent from Trend Micro that helps them really maintain the security within their particular environment above and beyond, I would say, the first-party security services offered by AWS as well. So they get the blend of, the first party with AWS and Systems Manager with the additional security controls that Trend Micro offers as well. And I'm going to touch a little bit more on this migration project in the coming slides as well. But as I mentioned, they did start putting the SSM agent on all of their on-premise servers as well. So as they were beginning their migration from on-premise in their data center to AWS, they could actually control the same things that they were doing in AWS in terms of security and compliance the same exact way with their on-premise as well. So it kind of sets them up in terms of that migration and being successful and making sure that, again, their security and compliance is there. So this is what you'll see when you actually go into Systems Manager and into Distributor. If you click under the third party tab, you'll notice that Trend Micro is the only security company there when it comes to Distributor, as well as being able to install with just a couple clicks of a button to be able to distribute your security foundation across your entire EC2 fleet, and also making sure that based on characteristics that you define, new EC2 instances will also get the security that you're looking for from Trend Micro's Cloud One Workload Security, which I'll touch on in just a couple minutes too. I've been around, I'm coming up at Trend Micro on my 20th year. Surprisingly enough, I still kept a little bit of my boyish good looks. But I was at the first reInvent, as well as, Trend Micro was a sponsor of that first reInvent as well. And we were always talking about, everyone that came by was like, hey, let's talk about the shared responsibility model, because it's so important to understand. And I know, well, I shouldn't say I know, but I hope by now that this is really ingrained in everyone's mind when they're talking or thinking about security or compliance in a cloud environment. You really follow this shared responsibility model where the cloud provider at the bottom is providing security for those foundational services. Things like compute, storage, the hypervisor, the physical security around the data centers. But ultimately, the customer is still responsible for the data that they're putting into the cloud. And when you're running something like an EC2 instance, all of the host, software patches, the operating system, all of those things are also the customer's responsibility as well. So always good to keep in mind of this shared responsibility model, even though, I think hopefully it's already super ingrained in everyone's mind as well. So with that, Trend Micro provides the Cloud One Workload Security to really help protect that data that you're putting within the cloud. So first and foremost, you're protecting EC2 instances, protecting those hosts and applications specifically from malware and network-based threats. So this is an agent that's installed on the operating system, and it provides security above what the AWS first-party security services are doing, like Inspector. So say Inspector finds a vulnerability within your application, we would actually prevent that application from being exploited or prevent that vulnerability from being attacked through our agent-based workload security that's protecting both that host and applications from those network exploits. We also do a number of integrations. As Steve, the last speaker, was talking about with application firewall, we provide our intrusion prevention rule set directly into the managed firewall service within AWS. We've been a launch partner with all different types of AWS services, like Transit Gateway, which was talked about in the last presentation as well. But ultimately, by combining workload security with things like Systems Manager, like and other AWS services, it really allows you to really operate in a very secure and automated fashion with security that's built into your work frames that you're already creating today. So we're also adding compliance and visibility through systems control. And I always hate shortening words, but file integrity monitoring is a mouthful and it doesn't always fit on one line in a slide. So that's what the FIM there is file integrity monitoring, tracking changes within files, as well as things like approved applications being able to run, locking down a system to just applications that you want, so just your golden image things, as well as integrating with different cloud services to really provide that operational excellence, as I was mentioning previously. So here's a quick snapshot of, excuse me, the workload security specifically that shows just some of the integration. So in the middle, you see that AWS distributor is actually distributing the workload security agent package. They're all coming online based on new deployments within this web app production that I'm deploying into US East. You also see on the left that we get visibility directly through hooking in an IAM credential that gives us read access into your EC2 visibility into your EC2 fleet. This is done completely by Control Tower. So as you're building new AWS accounts within your AWS organization, Control Tower can automatically hook up the workload security to give you visibility into all of the fleet that's running within your EC2 instances and give additional details about the operating system that they're running, what subnet is it attached to, which security group is running, and what rules are assigned, and also things like, okay, with that information, I can automatically create and deploy the correct policy for security directly to these EC2 instances, completely freeing the administrative task of actually assigning or knowing what applications are installed here. We can look it up automatically, apply the correct policy. Your security is moving as quickly as you are in terms of spinning up new EC2 instances within your environment. So as I mentioned, this enterprise fintech, as they were going through their, I would say, the proving phase of this net new application that they were building in the cloud, they then wanted to also start moving all of their on-premise as well. So they set up a few, I'll call it swim lanes, for really to be successful for that cloud migration. So first and foremost, they used AWS Control Tower to set those guardrails. Funnily enough, you have people that don't always know, everything about networking or everything about security or operations that are actually doing the deployment of infrastructure. And perhaps they'll go through, the console and click a few buttons to create their EC2 instance or their resource. And when they get to networking, they'll say, okay, I want a /8 network. That seems small enough. And then they'll create that a few times, and all of a sudden none of their stuff is talking to each other. So this kind of Control Tower gives a way to really define what's going to be deployed within your environment across all different types of AWS services, really setting those guardrails for really so teams can know what they should be deploying without kind of having to intervene or have them ask, or it just does it automatically for them. So auto-magically, I always like to say. It also helps build against the well-architected framework and PCI compliance. So by setting up specific tooling as well, you can also making sure that Control Tower is matching their what they're building against, say, what the cloud architect is defining as well, and allows them to maintain that visibility, security, and compliance with a Cloud One resource called Conformity. So Conformity actually also integrates with AWS services like Control Tower to really bring that visibility across the well-architected framework or other pieces of compliance. You can see here at the bottom, you do have the 5 pillars of the well-architected framework. Those of you that aren't familiar with well-architected framework, it's simply the best practice outlined by AWS as a better way to build within AWS based on their millions of customers out there, and really how to achieve the best configuration within your environment based on these millions of customers. So think of it as like a best practice guide as it relates to building within the environment. So there's 5 pillars: security, cost optimization, operational excellence, reliability, and performance efficiency. And each one of these gives a output of how you're building within the environment through the Conformity tool. So for example, in this, you see that my reliability isn't very good because I don't have backups. This is a test demo environment. I'm not specifying backups. But if I did, you would rapidly see that reliability increase. And this is something that Conformity really helps with, again, through those integrations with AWS as well. So I talked about workload security and Conformity today. It's part of a broader Cloud One strategy. So the network security piece that Steve was talking about that integrates with the AWS Managed Firewall is really our IPS set. We have container protection, serverless protection like AWS Lambda protection with application security. and also protecting applications that utilize an S3 bucket, either ingesting files into an application or publishing files to an S3, really helping secure that application workflow as well. We are doing free trials, and I'll be happy to do a personalized walkthrough for any attendees here today if you want to reach out, email, or click on the link below there, and happy to integrate your security with your current automation techniques as well. So ultimately, this is a service platform. Sign in, get the security information that you need within your particular environment based on what you're actually building within the environment as well. And finally, I just wanted to also call out our customer and analyst event that's happening middle of June. Always happy to hear customers, prospects, analysts, all different people from the industry coming to hear about what's new at Trend Micro.